Well, it happened. There's now an AI developer threatening to take our jobs, and his name is Devin? I saw so much hype around Devin, countless engineers worrying about their futures with AI threatening their jobs. We're going to get into all of that, don't worry. But first, I just need to talk to new devs for a second. Hey you, if you're a new dev, please stop worrying about all of this stuff. AI is not going to take your jobs. If anything, AI is more of a reason to get into software right now. If you're looking for an excuse to not learn how to code, cool, you have one. Here's your excuse. Stop coding. But you're looking for an excuse. This isn't an actual reason to stop. If you're feeling existential dread because AI is threatening your future, you have nothing to worry about. If you don't want to code and you're looking for a way out, cool. You can stop coding. But this isn't for any of you. This is a deep dive on where these tools actually are and my skepticism around what Cognition released today. I shouldn't even say released, it's not out. Anyways, let's talk about Devin. Let's compare it to some other tools and try to explain why I don't have any fear about this taking our jobs. And honestly, I don't even see myself using this. Let's dive right in. So Cognition Labs posted this video on Twitter yesterday and took the entire dev world by storm. Basically, half or more of my feed and all of my DMs have been about what Cognition Labs built here. And I want to take a look and let you guys know what I think. Today, we're excited to introduce Devin, the first AI software engineer. Devin is the new state-of-the-art on the software engineering bench coding benchmark. It has successfully passed practical engineering interviews from leading AI companies, and it's even completed real jobs on Upwork. To be fair, I've met engineers that you can say all of these things about that still suck. Like, I know engineers that can pass interviews, can do well on benchmarks, and even have real jobs that still suck, but still a bar being met here for sure. Devin's an autonomous agent that solves engineering tasks through the use of its own shell, code editor, and web browser. When evaluated on the SWE benchmark, which asks an AI to resolve GitHub issues found in a real-world app, Devin correctly resolves 13 to 14% of the issues without any assistance, far exceeding previous models, which could get 1.92% unassisted and up to 5% assisted. So much better, even without human help, than existing tools with human help. That's cool. That said, a tool that can only cover 14% of the issues in a GitHub repo isn't as good as an engineer. So we're not doomed as far as I'm seeing thus far, but I am very, very curious what they've built here because I don't know too much yet. So let's take a look.
Hey, I'm Scott from Cognition AI, and today I'm really excited to introduce you to Devin, the first AI software engineer. Let me show you an example of Devin in action. I'm going to ask Devin to benchmark the performance of Llama on a couple different API providers. From now on, Devin is in the driver's seat.
I'm doing my best to not comment on the video editing because I'm such a nerd about video editing, but yeah, not great.
First, Devin makes a step-by-step plan of how to tackle the problem. After that, it builds the whole project using all the same tools that a human software engineer would use. Devin has its own command line, its own code editor, and even its own browser. In this case, Devin decides to use the browser to pull up API documentation so that it can read up and learn how to plug into each of these APIs.
Interesting. When I first saw these pieces, my assumption was these were interfaces for you as the developer to work with, but it seems like the AI is using these as well. The AI is opening up docs in order to learn things. Fascinating. And also there's a chat with a human on the top left here, which they seem to be kind of covering up because the human here is actually saying things throughout. Measure the wall clock runtime of the API and use the REST API directly, to be fair. Tools. And they're actually, they're definitely playing that at hyper speed behind the scenes because that guy's not typing
After that,
fast.
it builds the whole project using
only metric we care about is tokens per second.
The same tools that a human software engineer would use. Devin has its own command line, browser to pull up API documentation so that it can read up and learn how to plug into each of these APIs. Here, Devin runs into an unexpected error. Devin actually decides to add a debugging print statement. Reruns the code with the debugging print statement, and then uses the error in the logs to figure out how to fix the bug. Finally, Devin decides to build and deploy a website with full styling as the visualization. You can see the website here. All of this is possible today because of the advancements that we've made in both reasoning and long-term planning. It's a really hard problem, and we've only just started, but we're super excited about the progress that we've made so far. In the meantime, if you'd like to try out Devin on your own real-world tasks, send us a request below, and we'd be happy to forward it to Devin.
Interesting. My first thought is that this is so poorly edited and structured that I need to go film a better intro, because if this happens in the first 2 minutes of my video, my retention's gonna go to the fucking floor. That was a bunch of fancy visualizations and dead air, not a quality pitch. And certainly this does not justify all of the fear and horrors I've been seeing people sharing, like Devin's proof that engineering's dead. I have a couple more things pulled up here. Someone linked this example, which is their game of life that they actually deployed on Netlify. And it seems to be very stable. If you place just one block, it doesn't work. And I guess Game of Life needs a couple, technically. But I did see somebody pointing out console errors. Prevent default's not a function of eMouse dragged. Look at those errors. We love that. I want to see how they actually made this. So let's take a look. Interesting. I'm curious why he says Devin thinks it should be implemented on the homepage here. This seems like some very specific methods of communicating with the AI here.
Hi, I'm Adyan, and today I felt like playing the game of life, so I asked Devin to implement it for me. Devin started by creating a new React application using the shell, and then it started writing some code through its editor. After that, it deployed the app through Netlify. Let's check it out. That seems nice, but there's a lot more features which I want to add. So let's ask Devin to do this one at a time.
Something I'm going to overanalyze is the timestamps here. I want to see how long this actually took to create. Okay, 139, 140, 141, and then it took from 141 to 151 to make the production build. So it took 10 minutes to generate this code, which, like, yes, this would take an engineer significantly longer. But the issue I am seeing here is the difficulty inherent to figuring out what does and doesn't work. Because if the solution it spits out is bad, can you iterate on it the same way a real dev could? Like if I had a human who built this, it would take them a bit longer than 10 minutes, but if it wasn't right, they could adjust it. If this takes 10 minutes per attempt and the attempt is wrong, good luck. Yeah, if it could spit out 4 in 2 minutes, that'd be very different from one attempt in 10. Cool. More timestamps, 1 hour 53, so 1:53 a.m. Adding Devin in cool text to the center of the screen will give it a nice personal touch. I'll take care of that and make sure it complements the design. I'll update you once it's done. So this, I guess, is going on in the background? Interesting. Then actually, never mind. Make it start with the word Devin in pixels. They said in cool text initially, and then he changed what it's supposed to do here.
I want the words Devin to be written at the initialization screen instead of it being random.
What's this little bit here? Updated the Game of Life file using a new pixel font. That took another 7 minutes by the looks of it. So 10-ish plus minutes per change. If we go back to the numbers that they dropped here, something this isn't measuring is time to complete. It would be cool if they showed how long it took for each of the issues that it completed to be completed, because my gut feel is that it takes a lot more CPU and a lot more time to run this model, which is also a big part of why they probably aren't releasing it for public access. And instead they're saying, ask us questions and we'll go run it ourselves. So already getting more skeptical as we dig further in.
Then I want the word to be slightly bigger and the frame rate to be faster. I also want him to fix a bug where the screen gets freezed after 3 seconds.
Okay, when did he ask for the bug to be fixed? 211. Oh, I fixed the bug pretty quick. That only took it 3 minutes.
Let's see the progress Devin has made so far. We can see the diff. And the last diff shows that Devin just fixed the bug where the screen gets frozen after 3 seconds. This seems reasonable to me, so let's move on. Next, I want Devin to increase the frame rate after 10 seconds.
Keep the current frame rate for the first 10 seconds, but after that, have it start to slowly speed up. How long did it take to do that? Another 4-ish minutes. Updated project files. Can you make it responsive where it changes with the window size?
And also to make the website responsive to different window sizes. I also wanted to make it interactive so that when I click my mouse somewhere, it should spawn a new block. Let's check out what Devin has made so far. Started with Devin, which is what we asked for. And when I click something, it creates a new block as well. That's fun. Let's play around with it.
God, these guys need help with these marketing videos. Yeah, and as Melky pointed out here, and I showed in the console, Not the best code that it's writing. It'd be cool if they made the source code accessible, but they didn't. So I can't like read that and analyze it. It seems like they're kind of hiding those parts.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah, and I'm going to show you how Devin, our AI software engineer, can autonomously learn from a blog post. Within a few minutes, Devin successfully generated this desktop background image for me with my name on it. So all I had to do was send this blog post in a message to Devin. From there, Devin actually does all the work for me, starting with reading this blog post and figuring out how to run the code. In a couple of minutes, Devin's actually made a lot of progress. And if we jump to the middle here, you can see that Devin's been able to find and fix some edge cases and bugs that the blog post did not cover for me. And if we jump to the end, we can see that Devin sends me the final result, which I love. I also got 2 bonus images here and here. So let me know if you guys see anything hidden in these.
Interesting. It seems like it only did a good job with the Sarah one, and these other ones are really hard to read. Again, with the timestamp thing. So she started at 12:59 and finally had an answer that worked at 1:41. So that was 42 minutes to implement things that it learned from a blog post. That sounds roughly what a decent engineer would do, and it would actually be code that they understood. And it's not knowledge that lasts forever. Like once an engineer reads through a blog post and understands the contents, they can apply that knowledge many, many times going forward. This you have to retrain probably every time you want to do something like this. It's, yeah. And on top of that, when you consider the compute costs of running like GPU heavy models for 40 minutes to parse a blog post, why was everyone so hyped about this again?
And I want to show you an example of Devin, our AI software engineer, helping me fix a bug. So I've been using this repo called SymPy. SymPy is an algebra system written in Python. And I noticed this issue where when you take the log of a fraction, you get zoo, which is a type of infinity. So that's definitely wrong, but instead of trying to figure this out myself, I just asked Devin to take a look. Devin immediately jumps in, sets up the repo, and is able to reproduce that same zoo output. Devin then figures out the right part of the code and adds print statements in order to...
Are people just not looking at the timestamps when they look at this? From 11:16 to 12:12. This took Devin an hour to do. What? What are they even doing in that time? Read the docs, set up the development environment, reproduce the issue, read the code related to the log function, implement the print debugging and identify the log function correctly, identify that division arg results in 0 due to integer division. And you can see how long it took to get to each of these steps. So it got from initial prompt to set up and identifying the bug in 12 minutes, and then another 30 to 40 to actually finish.
And adds print statements in order to figure out what the cause of this issue is. And we can see here that the cause is that integer division leads to a 0, and then we take the log of 0.
Please tell me he's going to put the mouse over these other check marks so I can see the other timestamps.
So based on that...
Yes, he is. Cool. Let's get this timestamp. 12:11. Cool. So it took 30 minutes from removing the print statement and cleaning up the code to actually running the tests to confirm that nothing else is affected. It might be that the tests for this repo were slow, but 30 minutes?
Based on that, Devin's able to fix the issue in the code by replacing that integer division with true division, and then cleans up the debug output and verifies that the result is what we want.
And they couldn't have run the audio through an AI tool to clean it up. There's a bunch of those. This is Adobe's audio fixing tool for podcasts, but you can use it for anything. I just ripped the audio from that awful demo. And to be clear, like if you're in a meeting with a coworker or like sending a Loom to somebody, this shit doesn't matter. But when these videos are getting viewed by 500,000 impressions, suddenly it might make some sense to fix those things. It matters. It really matters. Let's hear the difference. I'll just download it so we can compare.
Hey, I'm Neil, and I want to show you an example of Devin, our AI software engineer.
Just so you guys could hear the difference.
Hey, I'm Neil, and I want to show you an example of...
Hey, I'm Neil, and I want to show you an example of Devin, our...
Yeah, maybe you're using AI for the wrong things, guys. Maybe figure out how to use AI for your freaking presentations before you use it to scroll through a bunch of things AI supposedly built. I'm getting bearish on these guys fast, and it's for the dumbest reasons. I know that, but what the hell? What the hell? Put some effort into this part. Thankfully, Chad agrees this is absurd. It makes me feel a little less gaslit. Devin can train and fine-tune its own model. I don't want to listen to them talk about it anymore because I know how this audio tends to go. So I'm immediately absurdly skeptical of this. The biggest points of skepticism for me are that none of the presentations actually had them typing anything. There's not a single instance throughout here thus far where anyone typed something during a demo. They ran all of these demos ahead of time and they scrolled through it step by step. It's all showing you after the fact what it looked like. And that alone, massive skepticism from me. When you open with how early this is and what the risks are, like with Sora from OpenAI, if you guys haven't already seen my deep dive on Sora, I think the way that they've rolled this out is a good bit more responsible, because obviously just releasing a tool where anyone can generate video has actual massive safety and security risks for the world. And just rushing it out, open access for everybody, probably not a great idea. And they're also very upfront with how early it is and showcasing the things it does poorly. There's a bunch of parts in here where they say the current model has weaknesses. It may struggle with accurately simulating the physics of a complex scene. And they even show demos where this guy's walking backwards on a treadmill and his legs aren't like properly aligned, where sometimes they'll just get like reset weird. Or like this example where a bunch of foxes just spawn out of nowhere. Like, because I, as a person, can't play with it and figure out what the flaws are myself, they showed us and told us like it is not good at these things. I feel like I got a decent overview of what it does and doesn't do well by reading this post. Where when I go through this, what I'm being told is this is going to change everything in really bad audio quality. Ugh. I am so skeptical. I am so skeptical. We have a lot more to dig into here because we're just getting started. First, I want to look at some of the examples of things that have been built with it and the breakdowns of those. Matt Billman, who is the CEO of Netlify, and I'll drop my biases. Matt's a homie. I like him a lot. I know I'm not the Netlify guy, but yeah, Matt's a great human. I love him. He runs the company well. He is deep on the AI stuff, but is also much more reasonable than most about it. So here he's sharing his use, where he asked Devin to do the job of every proper web dev and build him a to-do app. Here is what Devin built and deployed with Netlify. I love he spelled Devin wrong. He added deving there. And here's a to-do app. Hello world. Enter doesn't add the task. Are you kidding? Add task. Does edit really make the field bigger? This is so... What? Doesn't even use local storage. I just refreshed and it disappeared. Hi again. Please subscribe to my channel. Less than half of you are subscribed. Please check. Oh, look at that. Long. Oh, you can horizontal scroll with the long text. They did something right. And if I hit edit, and I scroll into the middle and I hit save, weird. It functions. Somebody said this feels like bad chakra. It has the blue. Good old dark mode. That is wonderful. If you toggle the dark mode to the light mode, I toggle from light to dark, it breaks. They're doing a great job of replicating the experience of reviewing a project built by an intern that's still learning React. This feels like the awful job interviews I had to do at Twitch because random college grads were being referred to roles they weren't qualified for, claimed they had 2 years of experience in React. And then when I actually went to their GitHub to check, their React project was a single index.js with a giant HTML file pasted into the return. So that's the vibe I'm getting right now. Yeah. Thankfully, I'm not the only one. And this is interesting because Ryan Carniato, if you guys don't know him, because I'm sure I'm getting a lot of people watching this that aren't deep in the web dev world. Ryan Carniato is the creator of Solid.js, which is the most interesting and one of the most promising tools for modern web dev ever made. Its adoption isn't huge, but the framework itself is incredible. It's introduced concepts that every other framework is taking from. If you want to build a performant web application using modern tools, technologies, and patterns, Solid is one of the top options, especially if you're already a React dev. So he knows performance very well. The other important thing to know about him is that he works at Netlify. So him quote tweeting the Netlify CEO is an interesting decision because that's his boss's boss's boss. So what do you have to say? Devin decided to build a client-side rendered to-do app in about 130 kilobytes of JavaScript. That scores around a little under than 80 points in Lighthouse. As poor as it is, it's pretty representative of where things are today. It will be interesting to see how this technology grows to meet the scale and complexity. This is a good call out. If somebody made a new React app using Create React App and just did everything the dumb obvious way and shipped it, you'd see numbers somewhat similar to this. But at the same time, the React ecosystem and a lot of the other ecosystems are advancing past the idea of just shipping a bunch of JavaScript to the client and hoping it figures itself out. So how will the AI keep up with us developing better solutions is a really good question to ask. Reverse engineering confirmed the suspicion that it was built on React. It also uses Chakra UI and Framer Motion. I think that was bundled with Webpack. Tree shaking is like why it's falling down a bit, but that also raises the question of why include these libraries in a To-Do app in the first place. This makes me think a lot about the cost of abstraction. While not the same demo, To-Do MVC and Svelte, Preact, and Solid are all about 5 kilobytes of JavaScript versus the 130 on this app. A 26 times increase in the size down the payload is a bit insane. Still, styled/animated and also with more functionality. That is, all of these examples with Svelte, Preact, and Solid have more functionality and animations and better stylings, and there's still way less code being shipped. We choose libraries because they make our lives easier. But do we want AI to choose libraries as well? That's a good question. Do we want AI to write the smallest possible solution for our problem, or do we want it to pull a standard that already exists? And who's going to be making those standards in the future? Are those going to be made by humans or AI? All really good questions. Possibly so that we don't lose control, so that we can tweak it and edit, but it does nothing for our complacency when it comes to making the right technology decisions. If popularity governs the trend, does AI just propagate the same average expectations? In the future, is everything mid? That is a phenomenal question. In the future, is everything mid? Whew, I should digest that one for a bit. Ryan said more. Here's another comment he had. And this was because the Primeagen, who I know, smaller YouTuber you might not have heard of, he has another channel called the Prime Timeagen that you might be thinking of, though. That channel's pretty big. I think that HTMX is getting second place a big take. He asked the question, which was a poll, which would you use? To be clear, his audience is biased. He has a lot of HTMX fans in his audience and has showed it to them a bunch, so it's going to get a boost from that. But for it to beat out like Svelte and Vue so handedly is really interesting. React is still 40%, so I would expect AI to adopt the popular thing here, which is 40%, although I did ask AI a few days ago, what JavaScript framework would be the easiest for AI to write code for? Answer with only one framework and justify it briefly. Vue.js could be considered the easiest framework for AI to write code for, primarily due to its simplicity and straightforward syntax. I was amused by this. I love this clip because for those who don't know, I used to be a mathlete. I helped bring my high school to the state finals for the first time in I think 20 years. And then I started smoking weed and realized I hated math. So I have some takes here.
What is the letter in the 2010th position? Scott.
A.
A is the correct answer.
Okay, this one's easy, to be fair. Mathlete is 8 letters long. 2010 divided by 8, you want the remainder, which is 2. A is 2 positions. Easy. Next question.
Scott.
A.
A is the correct answer.
When you learn to think in Mathlete, you learn to think in Mathlete. These are the exact types of questions you get at these stupid events.
Which means Scott has a 1-0 lead over Victoria.
Oh, I should give you guys the context. Why the hell are we watching this random Mathlete thing? The kid on the right that's answering these questions is the 10-year-old version of the current CEO. This was a video of him performing at a Mathlete contest a long time ago.
As we head into the second question of our matchup. And the next question is, what is the value of 255?
He stanced the fuck up too. I love his stance here. He's ready to go. He's pouncing.
What is the value of 255? Scott.
5,000.
5,000 is the correct answer.
What's the shortcut for this? Fuck. There's a formula for this that I don't remember, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. 10 times 500? Oh yeah, because it's squared. The difference is 10. Yeah, that makes sense, roughly. 254 plus 245, 254 minus 245. Yeah. My chat has done math more recently than me, so yeah. Oh yeah, that makes sense actually, because it's the squared, the a squared minus b squared. Yeah, thank you guys. Don't know how I forgot that rule. It's probably the weed.
And the next question is, the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 can be arranged to... Scott.
60.
That one was insane. That one was fucking insane. I'll admit. That's a weird digit hack. These problems are particularly tricky because you can't think about the digits here mislead you into trying to do math with them. But you have to think of these digits. If you replace it with like A, B, C, and D, it's easier to think about because these numbers mean fucking nothing. They're just placeholders. And you have to remind your brain, hey, ignore these as numbers. We're just trying to find out the positions. So you have to figure out how easy is it to have A to the left of B when you have these 5 options. So becomes a weird multiplicative problem of like, how many options are there with 1, 2, how many things are there? Okay, now you have 1 here, something else 2, how many options? 1, something else 2, how many options? You do that for all of them. You can make a math hack to multiply the numbers. I will say it's particularly funny that the CEO answers a question before you're finished asking it, and their AI takes over an hour to answer the question after you've asked it. That's a pretty funny difference to me. I will sit here and be amused about that as we dive deeper, because there's a lot more to dig into here. Gold medalist coders just built an AI that can do their job for them. First off, I hate the scroll in Bloomberg, but more importantly, I hate this opening. I hate this opening so much. Anyways, a new startup called Cognition AI can turn a user's prompt into a website or a video game. There's a couple other companies that do that. It's not doing a good enough job of justifying why they're special. A new installment of Silicon Valley's most exciting game, Are We in a Bubble?, has begun. This time around, the game's premise hinges on whether artificial intelligence technology is poised to change the world as the consumer's internet did, or even more dramatically. Or is it going to peter out and leave us with the same advances but not a new global economy? Oh, you're just saying Web3 but not saying Web3 here. That's fine. Bitcoin's doing well right now. I can't complain. This game isn't easy to play, and the available data points often prove more confusing than enlightening. Take the case of Cognition AI Incorporated. You almost certainly have not heard of this startup, in part because it's been trying to keep itself secret, and in part because it didn't even officially exist as a corporation until 2 months ago. And yet, this very, very young company, whose 10-person staff has been splitting time between Airbnbs in Silicon Valley and home offices in New York, they have raised $21 million from Peter Thiel's venture capital firm, Founders Fund, as well as other brand name investors, including the former Twitter executive Vlad. I expected that to be a sentence, I expected that to have a comma after and say more, so apologies for the rough cut there. They're betting on Cognition AI's team and its main invention, which is called Devin. Devin is a software development assistant in the vein of Copilot, which was built by GitHub, Microsoft, and OpenAI. It's not that in the vein of Copilot, but sure. But like a next-level software development assistant. Instead of just offering coding suggestions and auto-completing some tasks, Devin can take on and finish an entire software project on its own. To put it to work, you give it a job, create a website that maps all the Italian restaurants in Sydney, and the software performs a search to find the restaurants, get their addresses and contact information, and then builds and publishes a site displaying that information. As it works, Devin shows all the tasks it's performing and finds and fixes bugs on its own as it tests the code being written. One of the founders was a chief top engineer at Scale AI, which is one of the first AI companies. And to be fair, I know people who were not very talented that had really solid exits from Scale AI. So as much as this sounds big, Scale AI was more early than talented, generally speaking. They even say that here, a richly valued startup. So they're not even saying it's good. They're just saying it succeeded and made money. Yeah. Jan, until recently at Harvard, requested that his status at the school be left ambiguous because he hasn't yet had the talk with his parents. Let the record show, Mr. and Mrs. Jan, that you seem to have raised a nice young man whose peers hail him as an exceptional talent. Yeah, okay. His parents aren't ready for him to drop out, even though they're $21 million. As skeptical as I am, let him drop out, please. Wu, 27, is the brother of Neil Wu, who also works at Cognition. Brothers, that's actually cool. I know that family together at companies is something people are skeptical of. There's a lot of good reasons for it. But I've also seen siblings and other family members, just because you know each other better, you can get through a lot of the hard parts quicker. These two men are world-renowned for their coding prowess. The Wu brothers have been competing in and often winning international coding competitions since they were teenagers. They've helped elevate the U.S. national coding team to a more respectable position against its Chinese and Eastern European rivals in recent years. I didn't know the U.S. even had a national coding team, and I'm pretty deep in this shit, so cool. Sports coding. I knew sports coding was a thing. I just didn't know that there was a U.S. national team. It's cool. So thus far, it's all been qualifying the people. I want to hear what they're doing with it, though. The company has hit a breakthrough in a computer's ability to reason. Reasoning in AI speak means that a system can go beyond predicting the next word in a sentence or the next snippet in a line of code towards something more akin to thinking and rationalizing its way around problems. If they're still using an LLM, they did not do that. They might have written code around it that makes it feel like it does that, but if they haven't built a fundamentally different way for us to parse inputs and give responses, no, they haven't done that. The argument in AI land is that reasoning is the next big thing that will advance the industry, and lots of startups are making various boasts about their ability to do this type of work. Devin does appear to be well ahead of the other coding assistants. Cool. Most AI systems have trouble staying coherent and on task during these types of long jobs, but Devin keeps going through hundreds and even thousands of tasks without going off track. Okay, that's a fair point. The other things I've tried like this lose the plot somewhat quick. According to someone in chat, their job postings claim they have a product with 3 million token context. For reference, the leaks I have been hearing about GPT 4.5 bumped to around 256K context. So that's a big difference. That's 12x. Cool. We'll see. Gemini 1.5 boasts 10 mil. Gemini 1 to 10, cool. If they're not speccing these things and letting us have access, it's hard to believe any of it. And as Luke's pointed out correctly here, there's open source models that already can handle a mil. So it's interesting that a code thing like this handles that much. But yeah, as Yvonne points out here, and Yvonne's deep in this world, reasoning has been an area of research that a lot of really brilliant people have not made any progress on. I agree. I need to see something more than just them claiming it and having a bunch of really slow demos. In my tests, Devin could build a website from scratch in 5 to 10 minutes, and it managed to recreate a web-based version of Pong in about the same amount of time. I had to prompt it a couple of times to improve the physics of the ball movement in the game and to make some cosmetic changes on the website, all of which Devin accomplished just fine and with a polite attitude. Well, if it wasn't polite, that'd be very scary, to be fair. Co-founder of yet another stealth AI startup. I'm so tired of these stealth startups. Apparently, he tried Devin and said the technology is a leap forward. It's less like an assistant helping with code and more like a real worker doing its own thing. This feels very different because it's an autonomous system that can do something for you. Most of the other assistants derail after about 4 or 5 steps, but maintaining its state almost effortlessly through the whole job. That's an interesting development. Curious. I see some chat about the stealth startups. I will say, I know Y Combinator gets a lot of flack. Y Combinator subtly mocks you internally for thinking stealth's a good idea. Their whole thing is launch, launch, launch. If you haven't shipped a thing, it's not a real thing yet. And we're not going to put money into a thing that you're not actually fucking shipping. How Cognition made this breakthrough and in so short a time is something of a mystery, at least to outsiders. Wu declines to say much about the technology's underpinnings other than that his team found unique ways to combine LLMs such as GPT-4 with reinforcement learning techniques. Okay, that's all I needed to hear. They're just externally triggering the model in certain ways and injecting context to keep it on topic. Nothing they've developed here isn't going to be copied by half the other startups in the space in the next 3 to 6 months. It's a wrapper that is so easy to implement, they're scared to talk about it. My skepticism's through the fucking roof right now. I was hoping this would make me less skeptical, and it's only made me more. Their big competition, something like Magic AI, that's raised $100 million, but they're actually building their own models at the very least. They're not building their own model. They're wrapping GPT-4, not even telling us how. Ask just about anyone who knows anything about AI, and they will tell you that the teams at both Cognition and Magic AI are outstanding. Because I think this is a piece of marketing disguised as a Bloomberg article. I hate sentences like this so much. Whew. In both cases, devs are left wondering what this new technology means for their livelihoods, and the rest of us wonder what it means for the advancements of software at large. I'm not particularly worried. If anything, I'm more confident after reading this. I thought this was going to be so much worse. In addition, people who cannot code today but have bright ideas can now create their own websites, services, and apps. They can do that right now too. They just have to learn how to code. I'm going to drop a real spicy take quick. If your idea isn't good enough that you're motivated to learn how to code to build it, then your idea isn't good enough to build. It is not that hard to learn how to code and build something. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say anyone can learn to code in 3 months and get a job, because that stuff's bullshit. But anybody could spend 6 to 9 months figuring out how to build the thing they want to build, and it might not work perfect. It probably won't work that great at all. But they can figure it out and build a really valuable skill in the process. The best engineers I know learned how to code because they wanted to build something. It was hard to build. They didn't know how to build, so they taught themselves how to do it and then became really good coders. The ideas, there's this weird belief that there's a lot of ideas people have and they're just not talented enough to build it. Like, everyone likes to think they have some crazy app idea, and if they just knew how to code or had a friend who was a good developer, that they could make this groundbreaking startup that changes the world. The thing that changes the world isn't a good idea. It's hard work on top of that good idea. And if you're using tools like this to skip the hard work, you don't have the motivation to do it in the first place. This concept of these magical ideas people are sitting on, just waiting for tools to show them how to build it, is mythical. It doesn't exist, because if the idea was good enough, you would have already built the thing. And on top of that, ideas are so cheap in themselves. The thing that matters is how you implement it in the first place. Will this make it easier to test random parts of an idea out with audiences that don't mind an app that's half broken? Maybe, but probably not. I doubt it. You got to learn how to fucking code. Then again, the assistants could wipe out huge swaths of well-paying developer jobs and turn the software industry on its head. Elon Musk laying off half of Twitter has impacted the software industry and the average dev's job more than any of the AI shit we're talking about today. For his part, Theo has tried from the outset to position Cognition AI as a budding AI superpower. His firm hasn't invested in many AI companies, he says in a statement, but he sees Cognition as being in the same league as the heavies founder fund is backed, which includes DeepMind, OpenAI, and Scale. Sure. God. We have more to dig into here. That Bloomberg did not give me more confidence. Yeah, the writing code part is probably the easiest job as a dev. Yep. Everything else is a lot tougher. Devin has a GitHub account. Oh boy. Can it send merge requests? Cool. This is Rust code. Okay. I guess in this one regard, it's slightly smarter than me. Yeah, these types of comments and shit are awful. Like this would never merge. I don't even know Rust, and I can tell you this would never. Default exit code for an error. Are you kidding? I hate to go back to the Sora thing, but it's so night and day, and there's a reason OpenAI is winning. It's because they know how to be honest. Current model has weaknesses. Like, they call this out, whereas these other guys are bragging about the things it's doing poorly. That's hilarious. They're just straight up changing the data set. This is one of those like accidental things that like we've all done this if we're developers, where we unintentionally include something we were testing in dev in a PR. This is the most realistic thing I've seen it do, where it changed something, accidentally left it in, and then it made its way to production. Because this is a positional encodings change, not a data model change. So that's yeah. You get the idea. I feel bad for anybody who paid for Upwork work to be done with this. I want to dig into this part though, because I saw some really dumb comments when this was shared on Reddit. Okay, so it needs full access to the entire code base, has a 14% success rate with no ranking of task difficulty, so who knows if it did anything useful. Plus, I doubt the 40% involves dealing with any third-party library or API. Most companies don't want to give another company unfettered GitHub access, surprisingly. To be clear, they already did if they're using GitHub. GitHub's another company that has unfettered access. And I promise you, lots of companies blindly link shit to their GitHub. Pretty common. I'm sure that like SOC 2 compliant giant megacorps aren't as willing immediately, but they will, especially once you get your stuff standardized enough that like it's being adopted by other companies. But what ends up happening, if like theoretically everything they said was true, this tool is going to change everything, it gets way faster, way more accurate, the big companies that don't adopt it and don't give them access to their code base are going to fall behind. So this is not real pushback. But when I read this comment, I briefly read it before, so this is the closest to pre-reading we're getting in the stream. Look at their website. Can't they use Devin to make a better one? This website's fine. I like this a lot, actually. They're not trying to sell a product right now. They're trying to briefly tell you what it is. And they have their little seed thing pointed out at the top. This is a Webflow site. They made this in a UI to like click buttons to make it. So to everybody asking like, why didn't they use Cognition to make this? Because they have a marketing person who does this, and the marketing person uses Webflow, and they went and used Webflow instead of waiting an hour for their tool to generate something that probably didn't look that good. But yeah, Webflow is a standard. I'm not going to shit too much on Webflow. It's not my favorite thing. It makes it easy for a non-dev to go update and make changes too quickly. This is fine. This is where I'm going to get controversial and not agree with the pushback. Using Webflow for your marketing site at launch is totally fine. Using it for a while is totally fine, especially once you have like a marketing team. If you think Webflow makes no sense for any company with engineers, you just haven't worked with a marketing team before, because they love to make nonsense changes constantly. And if you can just point them at a weird dashboard where they can go do that themselves and not bother the engineers with that, A+. So I don't have any issue with them using Webflow here. I think that's fine. This is the one I was really upset about. Why are they using Clerk for handling logins? If Devin is as amazing as they say, I'm pretty sure building a simple login functionality should be trivial for it. Hell, it should even salt and hash the passwords, right? There's a billion reasons why this is a stupid comment. I don't even know where to start. Getting auth working is easy. Getting auth working correctly and maintainably is not. As someone who has done this many a time, the people who think auth is easy should never be trusted with auth. The people who say auth is hard but worth doing, they're worth having a conversation with. The people who say auth's hard, use a service, that's the side I've fallen on to nowadays. There's a reason companies like Auth0 are worth billions of dollars. And there's a reason massive corporations rely on Okta and Auth0, including companies like Facebook, including companies like Microsoft, including companies like Cloudflare that are known for their engineering expertise. All of these companies rely on third-party authentication services because doing auth right isn't as easy as y'all like to pretend. So that's not a real point against them. Maybe I'm reaching for straws. Yeah, no shit, you're reaching for straws. But if you inspect the DOM and the React debugger, they have a prop called after sign-in URL. That's just because they set up Clerk with the defaults. If there's an after sign-in URL value that's not an empty string, then it has something else to redirect to. But the empty string is root. It could have just been slash and would have been the same thing. You don't know how any of these tools work. Don't comment on them. They actually don't do anything themselves. Analytics, Hotjar. Website, Next. Login, Clerk. Jobs, Ashby. Waitlist, Google Docs. This is still doing it yourself. No programmers do things themselves because they're not writing assembly. The only real programmers, the only people who really do things themselves are the FFmpeg team. Everyone else is just using things other people made. Yeah, this is your classic Redditor that doesn't actually write code. They just get mad on Reddit and then go work on their 4-person team maintaining some car dealership's terrible website built with technologies even Facebook would scoff at and be concerned about. This is insanity. Their so-called blog isn't even an actual blog. It's literally a static page with hard-coded dates and entries. Do the posts not have their own URLs? Because that would be kind of stupid if that's the case. Okay, their blog has one post. That's kind of dumb. And the fact this doesn't have a link anywhere. Okay, this isn't a real blog post. This is another page on their site. But again, they're just using Webflow and had some random marketing person do this for them. It's not a big deal. And when they want to make it a real blog, it takes seconds to do such. This is just the thing they wanted to announce. The hard-coded dates and entries, that's any real blog does that. If I go to even my blog and I'll go to my info I'm building on, a post that I really should update because it's over a year old now. Everything in here is hard-coded. There's actually no JavaScript running on this page at all because it should be hard-coded because those values don't change. The date this post was published on doesn't change. Why should some JavaScript write that for me? What the hell? Clearly, they didn't use the right thing for uploads. Funny enough, this was a fun example that my CTO found, specifically because in this example, he specifies when creating a Twitter clone, don't worry about images and video or anything like that. Just text is fine. So we have this, and we also have here, they have a broken upload button. The reason for that is uploading is hard. Obligatory plug for UploadThing, a service we built to make it easier for full stack web devs to upload files. It also works great for your AI projects that want to parse images, manage assets, do all sorts of crazy stuff. It's the easiest way to manage your files. It's like if S3 was built in a modern time. And of course, we built on top of S3, all our client code and all our server code that you use is open source. We just provide the infrastructure to actually host the files because it's obnoxious to do it right. And if they had used UploadThing, or even better, train their AI to use UploadThing, none of these problems would have existed. So check out UploadThing if you haven't already. Really proud of it. UploadThing.com. Not vibing with this commenter at all. One more really funny thing here. Google Docs for the waitlist. This is so common. You have no idea. The amount of times I thought I was getting phished by Twitch because they were handling like partner meetups and stuff using Google Forms and Google Docs is hilarious. The amount of times I've had like big companies, even like Vercel, when I had an issue where my domain, the GG was having issues because it always does. Turns out that Guernsey or wherever the hell is not the best place to host your domains. Vercel was having issues with it, and they hit me up with a link to a Google form to give them info about what I wanted to do with it. It works. It works great. Google Forms is still the industry standard for a reason. And the alternative, Typeform, also kind of sucks. So yeah, this is not something to dish on them for. This is actually good practice. This comment is stupid. You can say the things that they demoed are bad without saying that their website is bad and without saying that they're clueless. There is so much to pick apart in these videos, as I've been doing this whole time. You don't have to make fun of their website for doing things the way every company does. It's just silly. People love picking and poking holes into things they don't understand because they don't like the thing on top. You can just say, I don't like this and I don't understand it. But they weren't willing to do that. There's a lot of more important holes you can poke in all this. I also want to point out that they're far from the first ones to do this. Marblism's a really interesting company. They're part of the current Y Combinator batch, and I'm impressed enough that I decided to invest because the founders of this company are actually members of my community and hit me up real early showcasing what they were working on. They're not pretending to be the ultimate tool for editing your code from this point forward or replacing engineers, where like Cognition is saying that you can hire Devin for engineering work. They're telling you can go from 0 to 1 quickly, so you can get a starting point for your project from scratch really fast. Light or dark mode. We're going to pick dark mode because you can charge more for that. This will take a second, and I'll admit, they don't hide this. They're not going to pretend that it is instant like those videos did. They take your description and they rewrite it for you using their model to say, hey, we think that this will work better with Marble's capabilities, improving your overall outcome. So it breaks it down into these parts. Marblism went public before they did marketing because they're not trying to hide shit. That's what I'm most excited about with these guys is they're not pretending it's better than it is or that it's different than it is. They're just trying to build a really good place to scaffold out your Next.js projects. That was a long tangent just to realize I can't use this. I was going to try. I failed. At least they give you something you can try, though. And that's a huge difference from what we're seeing. Hopefully, seeing what this looks like right now has helped showcase why they're hiding Devin behind a bunch of walls so we can't see it. Because these tools are still incredibly early, and we don't know what value they'll bring. People want to see the code it actually wrote, and that's fair. Oh, don't tell me they're using... Yeah, you can't auth guard like this. That doesn't work. That's actually incredibly insecure. That's incredibly insecure because if you do anything in these pages, you can request these separately without passing that layout check. So yeah, surprise, surprise. AI code is not only wrong, but insecure. I want to actually see the voting here, though. Let's take a look at this quick. Also, if you're curious about that security issue, I have a long video about the React taint that you should look into where I go in depth on that. Can someone teach the AI what React query is, please? Anyways. Const Pokemons found equals await api.pokemon.findMany. Now we have a Pokemon array, and we set the Pokemons to Pokemon found. If there's an error, we snack bar, failed to load. And finally, if it doesn't error, we set loading to false. Fetch Pokemons. That's fine. There are race conditions here because they're not using React Query. Again, please use React Query. And here's the vote for Pokemon function. Again, async Pokemon ID, try, await, API vote, create one by Pokemon ID, queue snack bar, vote registered, set refresh. Is this component library? They're using AntD. Ant design makes sense. I don't like that they're mapping between these. We'll be voting between 2 Pokemon. They're handling that here, but I just don't love that way of doing this. It's fine, but interesting. A separate refresh button does not do what I asked, but cool. This code is far from the worst. It made decisions I wouldn't have made, and it did things I would have used a library for that is a little more consistent. It's weird. I would not have imported a library for the components, but I absolutely would have for the use effect. So like, not expert React code, but if I'm being totally honest, I've hit approve on code that was worse. So yeah, this might pass a code review for me if I want the feature out badly enough. But yes, they accidentally left this use router call in that's not being used. It's interesting that it is also like not prettified at all, Like, it'd be cool if they just ran it through Prettier quick. Like, these imports are a mess. Small things, but real things regardless. Also, all these like authentication, day.js, all these other things being imported that aren't being used. Yeah, confidently mid. I think that's a fair description of this. Needless to say, I'm not that impressed. I went into Copilot expecting very little and ended up with something incredible. I went into this without really any expectations at all. And I came away blown away by just how not great or even well represented what they've built is. I know that the other things I showed might not be that great either, but at least they're honest about it. I'm incredibly skeptical of what Cognition's working on. I do see a future where tools like this could be very useful, but we are very far from it. And it's going to look very, very different from what we saw today. So don't be too concerned. Till next time. Peace, nerds.